President, please be seated. The court is back in session, and I give the floor to the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor to continue putting questions to the witness.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let me just respond to the inquiry that was made by Q-Sim Pon's counsel earlier. We did check, and indeed, as I have indicated, the civil party application of this upcoming witness that was filed in the other case is identical to the Case 2 civil party application. In fact, you can see the Case 2 civil party number crossed out in it. The number of the witness's civil party application in Case 2 is D22/194, D22/194, and it's literally the exact same document. It's just been crossed out. So there's no additional civil party application in play. Mr. Witness, we were looking at this document listing the K office personnel E3858, and I just had a few questions for you about the section of people who worked for K3. On the first page, and I've highlighted some of this, you'll see under K3 it begins with a group of 4 people who worked as guards for Uncle Number 2. Those 4 people named Tung, Sot, Dan, and Ran, followed by 3 people who worked as guards for Brother Van, the alias for Ing Suri, then followed by 3 people who worked as guards for Brother Hem, the alias for Q-Sim Pon. Those 3 named Torn, Hun, and Sun. My first question, do you remember, did you know any of these people who worked as guards for Noon Chea, Ing Suri, or Q-Sim Pon?
Yes, I knew all the names. But they were not guards at K1.
And do you remember what was your understanding of where they were located, these people who were guards for Noon Chea, Ing Suri, and Q-Sim Pon?
At K1, there were guards whose name listed here, like Tang, Sin, Lang, and the names listed here at K3, they were not guards at K1.
Okay, thank you. The last name I wanted to ask you about, after the list of guards for Brother Hem, there is also a list of guards for Brother Vorn, and then there is a list of 15 names. If you turn to the second page in Khmer of the document, if you turn to the second page, number 1 listed for K3 is a person named Sami, identified as chairperson of Office K3, and someone who was an ethnic Jirai. Do you remember, did you know this person, Sami?
ឈ្មោះនេះខ្ញុំអត់ស្គាល់ទេ
No, I was not familiar with this name.
You stated earlier this morning that you saw zone secretaries come to visit K1, and I'm finished with the document now, so you can put it aside. You said this morning that you saw zone secretaries come to visit K1. Which zone secretaries do you remember seeing at K1?
I said the zone committee, not zone secretaries. They came to work at K1, and they came to work based on the invitation by Pol Pot.
And the zone committees that you saw, specifically which people do you remember who came to work at K1 from the zone committees?
The zone committees who came to work included Thuch, Uncle Pok from the southwest, Tamok, and Sao Phum.
You referred to Tooch. Who was Tooch, and what happened to him during the Democratic Kampuchea regime?
To my knowledge, he was the North Zone Committee, but I did not know what happened to him.
Was Tooch also known as Khoi Tun?
I did not know about his other names.
And do you remember Tooch being under house arrest at K1 for a period of time in 1976?
I did not know.
You identified Sao Phim and Tamok as two of the other people, zone committees, who you saw at K1. How did you know Sao Phim and Tamok?
Generally speaking, people knew the zone committees. So people at the site knew them. They came to work there.
Let me ask you about some names of other zone committee leaders and see if you remember them. Did you know Ruth Nim, the secretary of the Northwest Zone Committee. And did you ever see Nim at K1?
No, I never saw him.
Did you know a person named Ya, who was the secretary of the Northeast Zone, and did you ever see him at K1?
No, I did not know him.
Let me go back to something I started to ask you about earlier. Did your responsibilities at K1 include working as a messenger who would deliver letters from K1 to the zones?
Talking about my messenger responsibility, I did not take letters often. I took letters to Sao Pham only 3 times. And as for other zones, I never took letters there.
Do you know who it was that normally would deliver the letters to the zones? Was it other people who worked at K1? Was it people who worked at the zone messenger office located in Phnom Penh? Do you know who normally would deliver letters to the zones?
I did not know clearly about that. Regarding the delivering of letters to zones. But for me, I delivered the letters to Sao Pham, and I think it was perhaps an important affairs. And because I knew Sao Pham, and that's why I was trusted to deliver letters to him.
Who was it that gave you the letters to deliver to Sao Pham? Who were these letters from?
I did not know who were the authors of the letters, because the letters were sealed, but it was Pol Pot who gave me the letters to be delivered.
And when you delivered these letters that were given to you personally by Pol Pot, did you deliver them personally to Sao Pham when you got to the East Zone?
Yes, that is correct.
Let me just ask you one more thing about your delivering letters. In your OCIJ statement, E3462 at Khmer 00204-025, English 00223-564, French 00491-960. You're describing your assignments taking letters from K1 to the zones. And you said, let me quote you, Pol Pot personally gave them to me to take to the zones, like to Kai Pok and Tooch. In addition, you also identified, as you testified, taking letters to Sao Pim. My question to you is, does this refresh your memory? In addition to Sao Pim, were there occasions where you delivered letters to either Tooch or to Kai Pok?
No, I delivered letters to only Sao Pim, who was the zone committee. I never delivered letters to the others two individuals you mentioned.
And in regards to your delivery of letters to Sao Pim, was this something that took place early in the regime, 1976, or in the middle of the regime, 1977, or towards in the last year of the regime, 1978? Do you remember roughly when it was that you were assigned to take letters to Sao Pim?
I cannot recall it clearly. It was perhaps in 1978.
One other subject I want to cover with you. Were you ever assigned to guard any of the leaders when they made trips to the zones? And if so, can you tell the court on what occasions you went with any leaders on trips to the zones?
I escorted leaders to the zone, but I escorted only Pol Pot. He went to inspect the dam construction site.
Do you remember which dams or which areas you went to with Pol Pot when he inspected these dam sites?
It was the 7th January dam construction site in Kampong Thom province and at Stone Dam.
Did you ever go with Pol Pot to visit what was known as the 6th January Dam, which was the dam at the Chinit River on the border of Kampong Cham and Kampong Thom province? Do you remember ever going to that work site with Pol Pot?
I escorted him to a dam work site, but I'm not quite sure whether it was 6th January dam or 7th January dam. It was in Kampong Thom province.
Can you tell us what did Pol Pot do when he went to visit the dam worksite in Kampong Thom province?
He went there to build good relations with workers there. I did not know about the details because I was simply a guard.
And did Pol Pot meet with and talk to the workers when he went to this dam?
Yes, he went personally to meet them.
Did the workers at this dam include children?
Yes, I saw some children among the workers, but their numbers were not many.
And were there militia watching the workers at the dam? And if so, were they armed?
Yes, I also saw some militiamen. They carried AK guns, rifles.
And can you tell us what, in terms of your observations, were you able to observe the condition of the workers at the site? Did they appear healthy? Were they skinny? What can you tell us about the condition of the workers at the site?
At that time, I did not pay much attention to their working condition because my main responsibility was guarding Pol Pot, so I just focused more on that. But I saw people working actively. There was no remarkable problems among them.
How many different times did you visit a dam construction site with Pol Pot? Was it just once, or did you do this on multiple occasions?
I was his guard, so very often I escorted him to different places.
Did you sometimes accompany and guard Pol Pot and Noon Chea when they would go to speak at congresses or study sessions in the zones?
No, there were never such delivering of speeches.
let me see if I can refresh your memory, Mr. Witness. This is from the interview you gave to OCIJ, document E3462, Khmer ERN 00204-025, possibly continuing to 26, French 00491-960, continuing to 61, English 00223-564. This is what you told OCIJ in your 2007 interview. Quote, I traveled with Pol Pot to open study sessions in the zones and to look at the work sites. Pol Pot went in person. Pol Pot and Noon Chea went to the study sessions. I never saw Kusumpan and Ing Sari go down. The study sessions talked about plans for farming, like how many hectares, the zone plans, the livelihood of the people in the zones, and the espionage plans in the zones. And in two other parts of your interview, you also talk about Noon Chea going to the zones to open study sessions. Does that refresh your memory, Mr. Witness? Do you remember now Pol Pot and Noon Chea going to study sessions conducted in the zones?
Regarding the opening of study sessions at zones, Pol Pot rarely went there. Only Noon Chea who often went out to open study sessions. Pol Pot only attended the opening of study sessions at Borai Kaila.
And which zones did Noon Chea go to open study sessions?
I did not grasp that. I did not know where he went to.
Did you or did you not accompany Noon Chea when he went to open these study sessions?
No, I did not accompany Noon Chea.
How is it then that you knew that Noon Chea often went to open study sessions in the zones? How did you know that?
Usually, when he left for a longer period of time, the main possibility was for him to open study sessions elsewhere. Though I did not know for certain as to which location he went to.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Witness, and the quote that I just read from your OCIJ interview, you provided specific information about the subjects that were discussed at the study sessions. Let me read this part of your OCIJ interview again. Quote, the study sessions talked about plans for farming, like how many hectares, the zone plans, the livelihood of the people in the zones, the espionage plans in the zones. I can't remember the details of the plans, but sometimes they raise those points. Question, can you speak in detail on these plans? Answer, they just talked about the enemy and said there were plans to deal with them. End of quote. And you continue on. How did you know about the subjects that were discussed at study sessions? About how did you know that Nuon Chea or Pol Pot talked about farming, enemies, and other subjects?
Through study sessions, these topics were heard through loudspeakers. So I could hear through those loud speakers part of the content of the study sessions. Although I stood guard outside, I could hear a part of the presentation.
And where was it that you were standing guard outside that you were able to hear parts of the study sessions over the loudspeakers?
Generally speaking, it was not held at one particular occasion. It happened at various locations.
And are you talking about locations in Phnom Penh or locations in the provinces?
The locations of the study sessions were at the current Borei Kaila, because it was Borei Kaila was an education school.
Do I understand correctly then that when education sessions were held at Borei Kaila, you would stand guard outside and you were able to hear some of the subjects discussed through the loudspeakers? Do I understand correctly?
Yes, I could hear some of the topics, but not everything.
And what leaders other than Nuon Chea would speak at these study sessions at Borei Kaila?
Generally, it was only Pol Pot and Nuon Chea who provided the political study sessions.
On the trips that you went to the provinces, did you ever go to the West Zone? And specifically, did you ever go to meetings that were held at a coconut plantation in Chibar Mon, Kampong Speu province? Do you remember that location at all, Mr. Witness?
No, went there, and the name of the location is not familiar to me.
And the last subject I'd like to just ask you a few questions about. Did you ever go to any of the large mass meetings that were held, ceremonies that were held on occasions of anniversaries, such as the anniversary of 17 April, the anniversary of the founding of the party, large meetings held at Olympic Stadium at which the leaders would speak? Did you go to those events, either as a guard or as someone to sit and listen to the presentations?
In fact, I did not attend those major events because I was a guard for senior leaders. How could I attend such a mass meeting?
Well, when Pol Pot or Noon Chea went to speak at these or Khieu Samphan to speak at these anniversary events, did you come as a guard for the leaders?
President, witness, please observe the microphone. Witness, no, I did not attend such an event.
Do you know whether some of the other guards at K1 would be assigned when Pol Pot, Noon Chea, or Khieu Samphan would speak on the occasions of these anniversaries at Olympic Stadium? Who was it that guarded them when they went to these events?
I do not know who would be assigned to such events. However, usually it was Pong who made such arrangements for guards to escort leaders.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Witness. Thank you, Mr. President. We have no further questions.
Thank you. And the floor is now given to the lead co-lawyers for civil parties to put questions to this witness. Good morning, Mr. President, judges, and everyone, and good morning, Mr. Witness. I only have some questions to put to you. And my first question is related to a dam in Kampong Thom province. You testified that it was a 7 January dam. Do you recall that if there was any river flowing through that dam, namely Stung Chinat or Stung Tang Krasang? Witness. At the 7 January dam, it was Stung Chinat or Chinat River. President Council Kong Som On, you had the floor. Kong Som On, from my recollection, the witness said it was the 6 January dam and not the 7 January dam. But thank you. Anyway, the witness testifies that it was at Stung Chinat. And Mr. Witness, are you familiar with the 1st January dam? Answer: Yes, I have. I have heard of the name. Question: Please repeat it because I cannot clearly hear you. Are you familiar with the first January dam? Answer: I did not know where the first January dam is. Question: in relation to the dam that you refer to, was it a large construction work site, or was it only a feeding canal? Answer: it was a large dam, and it was built crossing Stung Chinit. Question: was it made for the purpose of retaining water? For example, it was used as a water reservoir? Answer: yes, you could say that, because it was built to retain water, and then it could be used later on for the water to flow through the river. Question: I'd like now to ask you about your marriage. You were questioned by the co-prosecutors in relation to this topic already, but I have some supplementary questions to put. In relation to your wife, who worked at the Ministry of Social Affairs with Ieng Thiret, can you tell the chamber her position, that is before or after she got married to you? Answer: she was Ieng Thiret's cook. Question: as for you during the regime, how close were you to Ieng Thiret? Answer: I was not that close to her, because she was at the Social Affairs unit, which was far from where I was. Question: a while ago you stated that Ieng Thiret introduced your wife to you so that you could marry her. And can you tell the chamber why she made such an introduction? Was she related to you, or whether she worked there? And that because of her position, she made such a proposal to you? Answer: when we wanted to get married, we should make a request to our respective unit. For example, in my case, it was my guard unit, and our unit would make such a request to other units to look for any women that would match us. Question: in your case, did you propose, or were you told that it was time for you to get married because it had been arranged? What is the case? Answer: It could be my mistake I made earlier, but sometimes it was our unit who encouraged us to get married. Then we will be asked about our feeling and decision. And if we consent to such a proposal, then the arrangement would be made. Question. You stated that the unit encouraged you to think about marriage or family. Was there any instruction from the upper levels that when you reach a certain age, you had to get married? Answer. When our unit determines that it was about times that we should get married, then we would be asked whether we wanted to get married. Then they would organize the ceremony. Question. Earlier you said it was Internet who introduced you and your wife. And can you tell the chamber why you made the statements that it was Internet who made the introduction? Answer. As I have just stated, when the unit considered it was time for us to get married, then they made a proposal to the upper level, and then they would look for women in the other units which would match us. Then the unit would approach and ask us whether we liked that particular woman. And if we did, then the arrangement would be made. Question. I'm still unclear about this. You said that unless the unit introduced you, but you stated that it was Internet to introduce you to that woman. So my question to you is, what made you think that it was Internet to introduce you to that woman? Did she write a letter, or whether she told you in person about that? Answer. If my guard unit and the social affairs unit made a decision to select a woman, then the chief of their respective unit would call that woman and inform her of the arrangement. Because that woman was under the supervision of Ieng Thiret, since she was her cook. Question. Was it a normal practice that it was the head of the units who made such an arrangement, or who proposed such a marriage during the regime? Was there a policy to that effect? That is, it was the responsibility of the unit chief to arrange the marriages. President, please observe the microphone. A witness. The units would decide as to who would get married and who should not get married yet. Question. I still don't get a response from you. My question is whether it was a normal practice that it was the unit chief who made the arrangement, or whether you ever heard of a policy that it was the responsibility for the unit chiefs to find a matching pair for the staff. Was it a normal practice or was it a policy? Answer. I never heard of any policy that when we reach a certain age we hate to get married. From my observation, they had to consider our status, that whether we were ready to get married. Question. I only have a few more questions on the topic of marriage. When you were introduced by internet to that woman, had you known her before that? Answer. No, I had not known her before. Question. You stated that your fellow workers attended your wedding, and that your wife came from another unit. Were there any leaders from both units, that is from yours and from her unit, attended your ceremony? Answer. There were no other people from other units who attended the ceremony. Once the individuals and the units agreed to the marriage, then the woman would be sent to my unit for such an event. And there was no attendee from any of the social affairs unit. Question. What was the event like? How was it organized? Answer. There was a meal reception, and there was an advice for us to love one another for life. Question. So you spoke about this so-called advice. Do you recall in detail about such advice, or the reasons that you got married? Answer. It was not a major advice. The advice was for us to hold each other's hand and to build our life as a husband and wife, and to strive to work harder for the nation and the people, and that's it. Question. This might be my last question. At the time, were you advised that the newly married had to live together and to produce children in order to serve the revolution? Answer: no, we did not receive such advice. Thank you, Mr. Witness, for answering my question. And Mr. President, I conclude my session. President, thank you. It is now convenient time for our lunch break. We take a break now and resume at 1:30 this afternoon to continue our proceedings. Court officer, please assist the witness at the waiting rooms reserved for witnesses during the lunch break and invite him as well as his duty counsel back into the courtroom at 1:30 this afternoon. Security personnel, you are instructed to take Kyo Sampon to the waiting room downstairs and have him return to attend the proceedings this afternoon before 1:30.